Hey y'all, how you doing today? CVMG coming back at you with a little bit more Eternal Evolution. It's been a while since we visited this game, but my channel is home to one of the most viewed Eternal Evolution videos with over 10,000 views, and that's all thanks to you guys leaving over 175 likes on that video, so thank you so much for that. If this video gets even a fraction of that, I would be ecstatic, so if you feel the calling, drop a like and subscribe, but without wasting too much time, let's get into the Eternal Evolution tier list. So here we go, Eternal Evolution tier list. They say, do not forget that our Eternal Evolution tier list is not definitive and you can still play the characters you like even if they are at the bottom of the list. You can always experiment with characters to see which ones work best for you, and even those that you thought were weak can bring victory if they are put in a well-balanced team. Let's just jump straight into the S tier. The characters listed at the top of our Eternal Evolution tier list are the best heroes in the game. They are very strong and have almost no disadvantages. The only task of these characters is to smash and break enemies. Our highest ranked hero being a triple S, Bailey Hudson, that fights by teleporting behind enemies and then dealing area of effect attacks. He also passively refreshes the cooldowns of his abilities and then gains increased damage for attacking the same target multiple times. Maybe a bit of a stretch, but whenever you get his exclusive up there, you're going to be able to deal true damage with him as well. Boar has an ability that makes enemies deal 1 damage to him, which can be very good for throwing off an enemy that's about to use a high damage attack. He's also able to throw enemies and displace them on the battlefield to help scramble their synergy. Crete is going to be another defense super tank who passively builds his defensive stats over time and then deals increased damage with huge multipliers based on his defense. Hercules is our third super tank in a row, but he actually puts his shield on an ally as well, so he can take his survivability and grant it to the party. Emma is a multi-hitting attacker with huge multipliers, and even her basic attack has a chance to stun. Kalaza is basically like the Doom guy. He rains down with projectiles and grenades, dealing explosions all over the battlefield for massive damage. Luke is just pure destruction on the battlefield, dealing high damage area of effect attacks. Based on the fact that he gains energy just from hitting enemies with his skills, you can expect him to be casting skills constantly. Masrani is our triple S super support, able to provide practically every support function you need, from attack buffs to defense buffs to shields to healing. Nautilus can increase his entire team's crit rate while passively increasing his own crit damage, so that's a really good supporting attacker. Oak passively stacks his HP, and then whenever enemies attack him, they have a chance to be stunned. Rez kinda fights like a secret agent. He just somersaults all over the field while throwing grenades, and he's able to fill up your allies' energy, so very useful. Xander's going to be your classic auto attack king. He builds up his attack speed over time. Once he reaches max attack speed, then he boosts his own attack, and his multipliers are very high. Serena is a very good healing support. She's able to supply defense buffs to the entire team and just heal constantly throughout the battle. Sorietta is a very good attacker because he has these 3 little energy balls that travel around him clockwise, and whenever they hit enemies, they actually deal damage. Taylor is another high multiplier, multi-hitting damage dealer, but he also flips all over the battlefield, so he's very mobile as well. Zeta is our last super tank in the S rank. She's able to supply herself shields, supply herself healing, and then just give herself stacking damage reduction. Alright, and that takes care of everybody in the S tier. If we were going over some of these characters and maybe you were overlooking 1 or 2 of them, then it's probably time to slot them in and give them a shot. Now for the A tier. The characters in A tier are also very good, almost as good as the characters on the S tier list. The reason they did not get into the list above is that the A tier list characters have minor flaws that prevent them from being even better. First up in the A tier is going to be our support, Liran. He's an area of effect healer that supplies a lot of heals over time. Muka is going to be an attacker that can summon wolf familiars onto the field to give the enemies additional targets to have to deal with. Kane is like a bombardier that showers the battlefield with bombs and increases his attack while doing so. Paluno is a geometric attacker that puts a shard on a frontliner in order to bounce off electrical laser beams. Azina summons a mirror image in the beginning of the battle, and she can deal some hefty damage, but she also comes with an attack buff that she gets from praying to the machine god. Moriami reduces damage taken while simultaneously planting seeds on the enemy that sprout into flowers for some pretty decent damage. Rakana is an attacker that burrows through the battlefield into the back line to assassinate foes. This is really good for attacking enemy squishies, but it's also a double-edged sword considering it sets Rakana in the middle of all the enemies. Randall fights like Zed on League of Legends by throwing out multiple phantoms that mimic his attacks and abilities. And that takes care of the A tier. All in all, some really good choices. I myself am using Randall as my carry, and I can say that his damage is surprising. And now for the B tier. The characters in the B tier are average in terms of their power. They're not bad, but they're not exactly top-notch either. These heroes are great as support or as extra force, but not as the main units on the battlefield. Anaruda is our first attacker in the B tier. He has some underwhelming multipliers, as well his kit requires on building accuracy to build up his damage, which is a pretty hard stat to get. Prigor is a good auto attacker with a fan-shaped ultimate, but whenever her auto attack crits, it actually cleaves to the nearest 2 enemies, which isn't that bad. She's also got a pretty sick attack speed buff, so I think I'd have to see this one for myself to judge, but she's in the B tier based on this list, so we just gotta move on. Artis is going to be down here because, as I'm sure everybody knows, he does not do a lot of damage and he's not a very good tank. Bot Mark II is an attacker that defense breaks enemies, but he only defense breaks them 4% at a time and only up to a maximum of 32%. Hypnos is down here because he's sort of like a symbiote support, and while he can make somebody a lot stronger, it's probably just more efficient to slot an entire other character. Shinwei just doesn't really cut it with these multipliers. He does send out a shadow of himself, but this attack that's supposed to make the enemy lose a percentage of their maximum HP, it only makes them lose 6%. He definitely looks cuddly and fuzzy, but I would not put him on my team. Langle is pretty underwhelming. He looks freaking sweet, but this passive is just solely dedicated to giving him a slight defense boost. He pulls all the enemies towards him and then they're just free to do whatever they want, and his damage isn't that great either. I hope this guy sees a good buff in the future. Murphy Rowe is sort of like your ice mage of the group. He's able to cast a blizzard, but it's in a very small area and it can be easily dodged. It sometimes doesn't even hit multiple people at a time, and in times like that, it can feel like a wasted slot. Oisa is a sort of mediocre tank that relies on mitigating crowd control to herself. Since she is a tank, that's not really the most important thing, and then as well, her stun is only for 1 measly second. And now the lowest of the low, this tier list only goes down to C tier. This tier includes characters you should not waste your resources and time on, as they don't bring much to the battlefield. Instead, they will just take up a slot that a much more useful character could occupy. It's such a shame that these amazing looking characters are so terrible, but Karmaw comes as one of our worst attackers. Boasting area of effect attacks that bounce between targets, this can deal a decent amount of damage if there's only 2 targets on the field, but other than that, it's not going to deal enough damage at all. Queet is a tank that gives himself a shield. No, that's it. He just gives himself a shield. Omar is an area of effect attacker that has static positions where he lays his abilities where they can miss. Also, he gives himself this shield, which is pretty much completely pointless. And finally, Ornn, who after casting a skill 3 times, gets a minor attack buff. And that's gonna do it for my analysis of the Eternal Evolution tier list. Thank you so much for watching. If you need a place to chill and chat, then please join my Discord with links in the description. But other than that, y'all, that's gonna do it for me today, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.